I'm muted. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 50, so you figure I know to put the mic on before I talk. Right. Episode 50 of Comic Book Radio. My guest today is RUSS LEACH. Man, oh man, do I like Russ's art. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, you're going to see it today, I guess. But that means you got to go to his link, which is in the description of the show. And I highly recommend that you do. Before we get started and bring Russ out, we got Creators Outlet here. What's up, Creators Outlet? We got Abo Grizzly here as well. Hey, what's up, Yang? Hope you're doing well. We got Levi Skeen here, too. Blake Powell, hey, what's up? We got Manny Cornejo here. And says, almost missed this one. Well, I'm glad you didn't, because we're going to have a good conversation. I like Russ. He's a good, solid dude. An artist's artist. Past Master, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Tweeted X to whatever. It's just a post now. Whatever. A post. Good grief. All right. Let's get a little music on here. Here we go. And let's bring out the man of the hour, Mr. RUSS LEACH. What's up, Russ?
Hi. Good day.
Hey, good to have you on, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. It's been a little bit.
Yeah. It's been a while since we spoke. Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Life has been hitting hard in places, but in general, I've been getting on. Love those clips at the start of the show. There's some of my favourite clips in there. This is how winning is done. That's just that means a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is. It's life is gonna hit you hard, you know, and you got to keep getting back up. It's not about definitely how hard you hit. Yeah. So I hope everything's okay. It seemed like you've been going through some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the last 5 or 6 years, all our parents have gone, basically, and my father-in-law went 2 weeks ago. So
oh, wow.
It's been a tough time for everyone, but that's how you do it. You get on and you carry on, and family's king. But I've been very fortunate to have had some great work to do in the last few years as well. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, as far as that work that you're talking about, you got some pretty cool comics out there right now. You got Only Death Can Save Us, and you're also doing all kinds of work everywhere else. Every time I see your work posted, even though there's such a classic feel to it, it's so yours, and
Thank you.
And I do want to get you involved at some point. I don't know if you want to, and it is putting you on the spot.
I would love to.
On King Cryptid.
Do you know what? I'm so glad that you said that, and I didn't have to ask you. No, seriously. Yeah, it's a big yes. It's a big yes. So,
fantastic. Yeah. All right, we'll work out the details afterwards. We
sure,
got some
no
time.
problem. Yeah.
But yeah, I love your art. If you guys haven't seen Russ's art, please go to the website. It's russleach.com. It is on the description of the show. Do you have anything currently going on in terms of a fundraiser or anything like that, like a crowdfunding campaign?
No, there's no crowdfunding currently, but I'm in the middle of a 68-page adaptation of The Shadow Kingdom by Robert E. Howard. Randy Zimmerman, over at Arrow Comics.
Yeah.
We both love Robert E. Howard. We love Conan and Kull the Conqueror and all that kind of stuff. So we hatched this idea that maybe I should give it a go, because I love John Buscema and all that kind of classic stuff.
Oh yeah.
So so that's what I'm in the middle of at the moment. I'm about halfway through penciling it. It's a slightly different approach. We'll discuss my art obviously later, but I kind of like that classic 70s, 80s kind of Marvel feel.
Yeah.
And I do that a lot, but at the same time I have a want to do more detailed stuff and spend more time. So there's an awful lot of rendering and texture in this. And I'm really enjoying myself at the moment. So hopefully that'll be out. I'd like to think we'd go for some kind of crowdfunding before the end of the year.
Oh, awesome. Very nice.
And it looks like we'll go to Fund My Comic, which is done by Luke Stone, which I think is an absolutely fabulous idea because it's focusing on comics rather than going to any of the other crowdfunding platforms and being sort
Yeah.
of a very small fish in a very, very, very large pond.
I tell you, when I heard them first announce that, I was like, "You guys are nuts!"
Yeah,
But I wish you luck.
yeah. But
And
what a fantastic job they're doing.
yeah, they're growing way faster than I thought they'd be growing. And they definitely are still growing. It's gonna, I think, by maybe 3 years into it or something, it's gonna be super slick and smooth and just.
It could
looking
be the place to
great.
go.
And yeah,
Definitely.
I'm gonna take a smaller campaign there with Alternaween and give them a shot and try it out and see how it
Cool.
goes. And then if it goes really well, keep building on that and so on. But they've been getting a lot of praise lately. A lot of really good stuff happening over there, and it's cool to see. You're going to bring your project over there. That's great.
Well, it was great to see Pat Broderick put his book over there. I've been a long time admirer of Pat's. Again, not when you look at some of the other styles that I like, it's not necessarily apparent in the things that I like, in the things that I draw, rather. But I'm still very appreciative of a very broad wedge of styles, and Pat's great. And he puts so much work into what he does. He's got a great book, a Western, which is something else I'd like to have
are
a
you
crack
talking
at.
about Bronze Star with
Bronze
Mike Baron?
Star? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a Western, and it's great to see a Western out there. Last time I saw a Western was that one with the octopus, which again was drawn beautifully, completely different.
Octopus Cowboy. I think
That's
Octopus
the one, yeah.
Cowboy. I think the second one is funding right now.
Wow. Okay, I've got to
Yeah.
go and have a look for that because there's wonderful artwork in that. I'd like to have a go at Western at some point myself, but yeah, there's some great stuff over there, and the fact that it's focused on comics and nothing else, that's what I'm loving about it, and also the fact that it's like. It's for everyone. Anyone can go there. There's no gatekeeping. There's no, it's just if it's illegal, don't do it. Otherwise, everything's open. So
It's
I love that.
relatively common sense. That's
Yeah.
not so common anymore.
Yeah, it does
Common
appear to be
sense
that way.
principles. Yeah. Now going back to your art, you did mention how you love Buscema. It's a lot of that 70s kind of that Bronze Age vibe. What is the inspiration for that? What draws you to that art?
I think it's probably just because that's what I saw as a kid. The first book I was given was I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a DC book, and it was Ditko inked by Wally Wood. And I'll remember it at the end. I'm terrible with names. So I was
Maybe
given
the
that.
chat can help us out.
Yeah, they'll
Ditko
know.
DC book inked by Wally Wood.
Stalker, that was it. Stalker. I remembered
Oh,
it. Yeah.
okay, wow.
So that was the first book I had, and I went and bought the first 4 issues from an American bookshop just this year, and had them posted to me, because obviously I didn't still have them. I was too young, and they got destroyed at some point. So I had those books sent over to me, and people had said to me about Wally Wood and Ditko, and for the longest time, being ignorant of really looking at how things were done and the actual artists' names when I was a kid, I didn't really know what they were talking about, but I can see little bits of it in my work. Anyway, that was the first book I picked up, and then the next thing that really hit me hard was a combination of 2000 AD in the UK and Captain Britain. And Captain Britain had reprints of Buscema and Sinnott's inks over the top in Fantastic Four, Steranko doing Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then a whole bunch of other stuff that was reprinted stuff, a lot of Gil Kane and what have you, some Avengers stuff. And it sunk. That was it. It grabbed hold of me, and I couldn't really shake it from then on. Really,
Can you
I love
quantify anything about it that you really enjoy? I don't want to take over the conversation.
No,
because
no.
I could go on and on. I love that era of art too.
I think it's because it flows. It's comic book art in the last 10, 15 years has become almost, in some ways, beautiful illustrations and not sequential. I find that the storytelling has become stilted as the art has become better. Better is it's an obtrusive word.
Some yes, and then
Yeah, so it's like I felt that, yeah, what I'm saying is there are a few artists, and especially on the DC magazines, there are a few artists where you look at like a Superman or a Flash, and you just like, oh my god, this art is gorgeous, and then there's realism to some of it, and it's like I don't necessarily want the realism, I want surrealism. I want to be I want to be hooked into a story, and I want to be flown along with the story. And if things are too real, then it's not a comic book in my view.
When you have a fantastical story too, and then you're grounding it too much. It's like
And also back then, I just think their storytelling abilities, the way that they moved sequences, literally sequential art is the art form, not drawing, it's sequential art that's the art form, and they just did it so well. And of course they were on the clock. Well, these guys threw that stuff out so quickly. I mean, it became looked up to by people like myself and yourself as well, looking up at that kind of art as if it was high art. But at the time they were just they were just knocking it out. They got their paycheck and they just did it really well, and they did it so often that it became completely second nature to them.
I think there's something to that too, and not to say that people should be put under the same constraint necessarily.
No.
But I think there is something to try to embrace the speed factor of getting your art, done and out there. You keep that energy. If you tinker too much, if you're striving for perfectionism too much, if you're striving for too much detail, there's only a few that could really do that anyway and pull it off without making it horrendous.
Yeah.
But if you're striving for that and perfection over capturing energy and movement and dynamics, I think you're gonna lose a lot of that storytelling. And I think
definitely.
that those guys, under those constraints, it was just about like, look, get that panel out, it make it energetic, make it, emotional, dynamic. Don't worry about all the little shoelaces and the seams and the,
Yeah, I mean, perfection is the enemy of great. That's the bottom line, is that if you look for perfection, then you're going to lose out at some point, because you just won't ever get anything done. We look at Randy and Glenn and myself do a show on a Friday morning, Comics by Night, and recently we went through every issue of Watchmen, and we were looking at how the art and the story process was put together. But we also did a large art book of Steranko, and it was great to pick out the errors. It was great to pick out some janky, an anatomy here and there, because you knew these guys were throwing it at the board, and they were producing fantastic work, and even the bad panels looked fabulous. There was just, Steranko's just all about style anyway, but it's that flow, it's that ebb and flow, classic comic book material, and I think that's what's caught me. And I'll be honest. I mean, as I grew up, we went into the 90s, and I really enjoyed Jim Lee's work at the time. As I say, like, Jim Lee has become the most Jim Lee that any Jim Lee can be now.
A truer statement there never was.
And when I submitted back in the old days, when you could submit to Marvel via a process, I submitted to Marvel, and they asked me to do an X-Men 10-pager for submission, and they said it was great, and effectively I was aping what I thought was Jim Lee at the time, and so they obviously wanted that kind of house style. Everybody was trying to look the same, and I'm glad I didn't get the work at the time. I went off and was an art director for 20 years or whatever, and did whatever I did.
Where were you an art director, if you don't mind me asking?
I art directed for a company that did retail brochures and point of sale material. So I would manage art teams, designers, and photographers, and I'd do sections of large catalogues, or I'd do brochures. I also did holiday brochures as well, that kind of stuff.
Those must have been the most classic, dynamic-looking brochures I've ever seen.
When I the first
If
the
only
first
you were an art director of Marvel, it'd be a whole different story. I might still be reading them.
thank you. The first job I had in retail design, I was a layout artist. And as a layout artist back in 1990, we didn't have the computers that we have today. So we would have literally layout paper where we'd have to measure out the text that went with every item, and we would have to draw the items out on the page. So I did 5 years of having to draw people, toasters, cars, all kinds. You wouldn't believe the kind of stuff that I had to draw. Everything.
You're like a comic artist.
Exactly. Actually, it gave me an incredible grounding. It was like when you talk about those artists from the 70s and 80s, they all had a library because they didn't have Google. Okay, they had actual libraries, so they went and got photocopies of books and all kinds of stuff. And back when I first came back to illustration in 2010, I did have like folders full of reference material, which I don't need now. Google is there. You can go and find any picture for any reference you want. But that library of what's in your head, it means that you can sit down and say, okay, I can do sequential art. Somebody's walking through a foyer out into a building and gets hit by a truck, and those things are in your head. You might not get them exactly right, but you know how to set the scene before you go away, get the reference, and get everything just
That's
so.
where the artistry comes in.
Yeah.
Filling in the gaps.
Yeah. So I was doing that. I submitted to Marvel. They liked my work, but it just didn't work for either of us at the time. And I'm glad of it, because when I came back in 2010, I found myself far more mature and far more able to like, first of all, to appreciate the stuff I loved as a kid, which, because of the way the 90s work and because of the way young men work, everything was like Dark Knight Returns. We all love the dark stuff, and I wasn't ready to appreciate when I was younger just how great, I don't know, Batman 66 was, or just how great the stuff I was. Or Fantastic Four. I loathed Fantastic Four when I was 25, but then, you know, when I came back and realised what there was, the vast width and breadth of styles that were available. I mean, I knew that I loved John Buscema. I knew that I loved Joe Sinnott, but then I found myself loving people like Manola, who are nothing like that. But it's just, I was starting to love the art of sequential art rather than just the pictures.
Yeah, looking at the storytelling and things like that.
Yeah, which meant that I started on a journey of finding my own style rather than trying to ape someone else.
Exactly.
For instance, there's the Conan stuff out at the moment from Titan, and there's this guy on there doing, basically channeling John Buscema. It's fantastic stuff. It looks absolutely beautiful. And of course, anybody who said, "Oh, I don't need to draw like John Buscema to be happy," anybody who says that's a liar. Okay, this guy is doing a fantastic job. But if you look deep inside yourself, you don't want people to say, "Oh, you're aping John Buscema," because there's only one John Buscema. Only ever will be. Okay, I want people to look at my work and go, "That's a RUSS LEACH."
Yeah.
And that's and if not only do they look at it and say it's a RUSS LEACH, not because I recognise the stick figures, but because I recognise there's artistry to it, and there's depth and energy, and he's touching me with the work, then what more can you ask for as an artist? You can't.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is, you're going to probably find that as you're out there and you're creating and you're taking everything in, you know, you're training your subconscious. You're in absorb record mode, right? When you're reading stuff, when you're being a fan of everything, and then all of those little influences are going to find their way to your art. But the thing is, there's always going to be something of you that ties it all together, and then that's what makes it, oh, that's that person's art. So if I see something out there that looks similar to yours, I'm first going to think that looks like Russ's, you know.
Right.
But that's the thing, is that, like you said, you don't want to ape all of these artists, and a lot of people do that, especially starting off. But it's about putting something of you, and you're going to have all those influences reflect in your work. It's just, that's how it's going to be. So when I look at your work, I can see the influence of that and this and that and whatever, but I look at it and it's yours, and
Thanks.
that's a difficult thing to do, and it comes with time, and it comes with kind of also letting go a bit.
Yes,
That's what I find.
Absolutely, it comes with time, or practice, however long that practice takes. Definitely, I've been in a fortunate situation to have thrown myself at this over the last, it's 13 years now, 14 years. This is actually my longest career now. That's
Wow.
really weird.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I was a designer. Started off paste up when I was very young. Got out of college. Sorry. Did the art direction for 10 years. Then I had my own business for 8 years, where I did. It was data management and website development. So I was coding and all kinds of different stuff. And then I came back to illustration, sequential art, in 2010, and I've been doing it ever since. I've had to do a few things along the way. Like I say to people, stay agile. Do lots of different things. I've done storyboarding. I've taught karate. I've taught at schools. I've done all kinds of different stuff, but all the time kept on with the sequential art. And now I'm just fortunate enough to throw myself at it, and it means that every time I come back, I'm improving. There's a little bit of more improvement somewhere to, there's always something that you can do better.
Absolutely. Whether better, faster,
Faster,
maybe
whatever.
try something out,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, totally. Staying stagnant is that I find is the death of creativity.
Yes,
You want to keep pushing yourself in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, I do want to comment. I always thought the black belt part of comic book black belt was an allusion to you being so good at art. Are you truly a black belt?
Yeah. I'm a fourth Dan black
Look
belt.
at that.
There you go.
All right.
It's a real thing. The idea
note
was
to
that
self: pay Russ on time when I hire him.
that's a long reach.
Hey.
I meant it's a long reach for me to hit you.
Well, I mean,
You're
if you're that level of it, you can harness energies that I'm not aware of, and I just like one day I'm like, poof, and I'm like, oh, that's gotta be Russ.
Hadouken. There you go.
Exactly.
I felt that the way that I approached artwork was very similar to the way I approached martial arts. In that, in martial arts, say for your Q grades, the lower grades before you get to karate, before you get to black belt, sorry, the art is shaping you. You have to get basics correct. You have to force your body to do things it doesn't really want to do. And then when you move on up to the higher down grades, you're starting to mold the art to the way you work, because everybody's body literally is unique, and it doesn't matter how good you are at karate, how much you stretch. Some people will be able to kick higher than you. It's just the way it is. People are different, and it's the same with comic book art. You have to learn the basics. You have to understand how people are put together, anatomy, but not just anatomy. You need to know figure drawing, like energy and body language and that kind of stuff. Like I was saying about the work that I did when I was a designer or a layout artist, having that library of things in your head as well.
Yeah.
So you put all these things together, and once you've got those basics and you know how to do them, or at least you've got a handle on them, then you can start molding things to the way that you want to be. So you can start stretching things, for instance, if you have a particular kind of style where you feel like you like to have tall people. We were talking about Watchmen, as I was saying earlier, and we looked at the way that he drew his figures, and they're all really tall and slim figures. If you've met one in the street, you probably wouldn't be very happy about it, but it worked. It works really well within the style, and he obviously knows exactly what he's doing. So that's the way I kind of came at it. So when I thought, well, what am I going to call myself? I thought comic book black belt. Why not? Nobody else had done it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go. Indeed. Now, do you find that the disciplines that you obviously had to learn towards acquiring that black belt and then becoming both disciplined yourself, Do you find that mentality has helped you as a comic book artist?
Yes. Yeah. I think sometimes maybe I never put myself up there. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I wouldn't say I'm the most creative. I know that there are people with fantastic styles and fantastic looks to what they do, and I like that more sort of 70s, 80s impressionist kind of.
Yeah.
It's still people. You can still see exactly what they're supposed to be, which in some ways is a brave style because it puts you under pressure. Yeah, you know, if you've got somebody's leg wonky, people will see it. It will stand out. Whereas if you've got like a more sort of dynamic style, you might get away with it. But you still need those things underneath. You still need the discipline of having those things. So I did a Ben 10 strip for a year, and it's all, you know, rubber hose arms and legs, but you still need to understand how people run, how they move, how they emote, especially if the faces are that much simpler. You need to know how to get emotions across to people through the strip. So those disciplines underneath that's one part of it. So actually adhering to the disciplines that you create for yourself, even though sometimes they can be a little restrictive, and that's where you need to pop out of the
absolutely
of the guidelines. But then from a business perspective, just knuckling down every day.
Yeah.
You know, getting downstairs, getting to the board and drawing.
Not just
some
the
days
kind of
you're not-
that whimsical, I guess
No.
I'm in the mood today.
No, none of that. No.
Wait till the
I've-
mood is, strikes you.
I've got pages to do, and that's the end of it. So, for instance, at the moment, I'm doing this book for me and Randy, the Shadow Kingdom. That's all on us. I'm not going to get paid for that until I do a hopefully a successful crowdfunder. But I still have to turn up. I still have to go downstairs and do it, because if I don't, it's going to take even longer until I get paid for it. But then from the other perspective, there's like things like a page rate. So, for instance, right now, if somebody came in and said, right, I've got a 22-page book to do, I need it done now, then I'd put my own book to one side and the 22-page book would get done. And it would be done as quickly as possible. And you'd get up every day, you'd do the job. And whether you're feeling like it or not, and even some days when you're feeling, freelancers don't get sick pay. That's not the way it works. And also being disciplined enough to know what kind of deadlines you can put on yourself, schedules, and then hitting the schedules. There's another thing that's hugely important as a freelancer is hit the schedules, hit the brief, meet the brief, hit the schedule, do it well, and be communicative. Make sure that you can communicate well with whoever's asking you to do the job. And so I suppose, because I teach karate as well, it's like, I suppose a lot of those things, they all come together. They do very similar things, like being disciplined, turning up, making sure that you do things as well as you possibly can, and making sure they're done on time.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are words to live by, especially if you're a freelancer. Now, when you're doing your own project, in terms of how you go about creating that, actually, you know what? We're going to take a quick little break, because I have a feeling this is going to carry us through the other half hour of the show. So we're going to do a quick little break here. Just ruminate on that for a little bit, about your own stuff and how you go about creating it and what that's like. We're going to be right back. You're watching Comic Book Radio. This is episode 50, a milestone episode with Russ Leach. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. We'll be right back in 1 minute. Don't go anywhere.
You speak as though I have conquered death. I live death every day. I am surrounded by it, smothered by it. Look at you now. He would have everlasting life. You seek to defy death, yet Sleep is to death. It is a painted death.
Welcome back to Comic Book Radio. I want to give a shout out to Spicer McLeroy. Thank you, Spicer McLeroy, for getting some alternative merch today. Appreciate it. So, Russ, about your own books. Now, Pastmaster is asking if you've got a project to promote. You don't have anything currently out right now, but you do have stuff to purchase, correct? Only Death Can Save Us?
That's right. Only Death Can Save. I've actually got... I think I might have the last of my stock with me. I'm going off to a convention tomorrow. So I still have some stock, certainly of book one I still have, of the original crowd-funded version. But New Haven, who are now Viking Comics, approached me about doing graphic novels. So they're publishing a re-edited version of both books. The point being is if you bought one from the crowdfunder, or if you buy one of the last of my stock, they're unique. You can only get it from that source. If you buy one from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever, from Viking Comics, then their version of it. So the idea is that if you were part of the backers crowdfunding, you got something special. It'll never be repeated, never be reprinted.
Wow.
So those are available on my website, but like I say, I'm hopefully going to be selling quite a lot of them off. But you can get I think I've got a t-shirt with bits and pieces on. There's mugs, the usual stuff from Spring or whatever it is. But there's also a link there if you want to go to Amazon and get the new version of it, the re-edited version. Again, they're done. They're designed so that they fit on the bookshelf nicely together. And the third one will be out next year. The plot's already sort of penciled out, and then I'll be talking to Rick about fleshing out the script at the end of this year. But the thing I'm on right at the moment is the Shadow Kingdom, and like I say, hopefully we'll be crowdfunding that before the end of the year.
Nice, very nice. Now, when it comes to your own projects, how involved are you with all of them? Are they entirely your baby, your idea, or are you working and collaborating with others?
Right. Well, Only Death Can Save Us for the first book, right up until the end, was just me, nobody else. And then I got Rick Hoskin got involved. He was doing some editing with me. I'd already met him because we'd worked together on Doctor Who. And Tim Quinn, who I know well, he was also editing with me as well. And I called them on right at the end to help, just so that I had editors looking at it. And then Rick suggested a few things, and also he said maybe he could help with the dialogue. So he got involved right at the end of that first book. In the second book, I involved him right from the start, and we penciled the plot out together effectively. It was a back and forth. It was like a writer's room, I suppose. I came up with the plot points that I wanted to get going. He gave it some structure. I came back with changes, and we went from there. His dialogue is excellent. Although I have to say, in the first one, some of the dialogue's me, some of the dialogue's him, and we think in a very similar way. I was going to get more people involved on the second book because at that period in time I got the Batman gig. So over here we have magazines and comics, kids comics and what have you, and Panini, who have the reprint deal for Europe on Marvel, also at the time were doing stuff with DC, and they wanted to do a DC, it was Hero Time Presents with Batman in it for kids. So I got the opportunity to do that, which was great fun. At the same time, they were asking me to do Doctor Who magazine, and then at the same time, we had all kinds of, as I mentioned earlier, there were family issues as well. Yeah. So I just didn't have the capacity, and I thought, right, I'm going to need people to come in and help. And then things went in a certain direction, unfortunately, but it turned around that I ended up finishing the book off myself anyway. I got a few people to help me out with colour and a couple of inks, but again, most of it was me. But that was down to kind of what was required at the time. So I would say Only Death Can Save Us is pretty much the next book will probably be sort of 80% me and 20% Rick, as in Rick produces that quality scripting and dialogue for me, and the rest of it is just me, artwork and everything is me. But the Shadow Kingdom, I'm on art duties. Randy has adapted the book. I think he'll probably be doing the lettering as well. So I'm more than happy to collaborate. And as I suggested there, I've worked on other stuff like Ben 10, Doctor Who, and Batman and what have you. And there was a whole team of people. Although I had to go and source the colorists, it was great to be in control of that aspect of the production.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be a little bit better to be able to have know someone's going to color, because there's a lot of times where I see really talented artists, whether they're pencilers, inkers, whatever it may be, on board with something, but at each step of the way, if it's not the right fit, it ruins what came before, so if it's a great penciler and that inker's horrible, now that line's buried and the art, it doesn't look recognizable anymore. But then if you get a great inker and then you get a horrible colorist, no.
The other thing
is great. You're able to have that control.
Yeah, I mean, it is good, especially finding colorists who, and this is not a general dig at colorists, please, but finding colorists who are artists as well. So what I mean by that is that I want a colorist that doesn't just understand light and shade and color theory, but also understands anatomy. So if I do an open style, where I don't put a lot of shade onto it, I just give them the form of the character or what have you, I'd like to see that form, the musculature and what have you, produced by whatever the colorist lays down.
Yeah, reflected in the colors.
Yeah, exactly. And it does lead to styles where effectively I don't use that kind of open style. I tend to apply texture and lighting myself completely, and then let the colorist come in over the top. But the first 2 issues I did of the Batman stuff, I had a colorist from Brazil work on it, and they were absolutely brilliant, because what I'd done was I was kind of using a sort of a 70s 80s style on it with a little twist, and so I'd be laying down plenty of brushwork, so it's nice thick brushwork, but opening up the larger areas, and they knew exactly what they were doing and produced some fantastic colors. And actually I had to do some character sheets as well, quite a few, and they did the 90% of the character sheets, and again, beautiful stuff. It really complemented the style that I'd chosen for the book. So it was great to be able to do that. I also got hold of Mike Summers, who'd done a lot of work on Unstoppable Comics. JD. I've done quite a bit of work with JD over the years, and I did a lot of work on Storm Chasers, and his first solo outing for I can't remember the name of the character now. Can't remember. It'll come to me. Like I said, I'm crap with names.
No worries.
But so I did that with him, and I met Mike Summers through that. He did a lot of colour work on that. So I got him involved in the Doctor Who magazines, and they really enjoyed seeing his colour work. And again, it was just right for what we were doing. So to have that kind of control over the team, or not control, but that kind of input into the people that you work with, it's especially if you're the penciler and the inker, by the very nature of the work that you're doing, you are the lead artist on it. That, cause you're driving the way it looks. So it is really really good to have that. I got Robin Jones and Eric Weathers to do the lettering for me on the second Only Death Can Save Us book, and that was really good. They were great letterers, really, and it made me see my own lettering, because I don't claim to be the greatest letterer in the world, but I had to do the first book because I was on my own. I did everything on my own, and it was I'd give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It wasn't bad, but Eric Weathers' work is just a 9 out of 10 every time. Just fantastic stuff. So I learned a lot from what he did for me. So hopefully next time round I'll be able to learn more and do a better job on the third book, which is great because that's what it's all about, learning process. So in answer, having that control, but also having that ability to be able to choose people to work with who are, really good in their own rights. It all rubs off. It always rubs off.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I find that there's a lot of, and not that you were doing this at the time, but there's a lot of first efforts, and we all do it this way, where we think, okay, I could take it all on, and you want to save some money, maybe learn something about the craft, whatever it may be. But once you've been doing it for a while, you should really know, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and sometimes you need some help, and you need the expertise of someone else to come in, and don't be too prideful, thinking I can handle every aspect of the book, so there's always certain things, and I find lettering is probably the biggest one that most creators don't want to surrender that ability, whatever that job, whatever it may be, but it's going to be the most affordable aspect of your comic to hire a quality letterer, and
definitely
good lettering will really help make your comic look great. It makes it look pro. It's easy to read, which is so important. But bad lettering, you can have great art. If anything, the better the art and the worse the lettering. Yeah. Oh man, all you're gonna do is look at that and go, "Oh, why?
Yeah, I just can't read that. Yeah. The only time, I mean, the designer in me does come out occasionally, and I will move lettering about. So I'll take the executive decision and be the editor on some lettering. So I'll think, no, it just doesn't work there. I'm moving it over. But they're minor considerations. Once you've got quality, good lettering down, somebody who knows what they're doing, moving a little bit about and editing is not a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to get that right.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody wants to join the show today with a question or comment for us, we got about 15 minutes left. There's the link. I'll put the link again in case anybody new came in and maybe missed that prior. So there it is again. Feel free to join the show, again, with a question or comment for Russ. So going back to your art and especially for your own book and your own characters, what do you do to go about the character design? What do you find is most important about character design?
I would say it's got to be eye-catching. I think sometimes character design can be too slick. And this is obviously a personal opinion because I love those comics of when I was a kid, and that's what I'm trying to recreate because you create the things that you love. I like bold stuff. So I mean, like, Death, he's got a big red shoulder pad on, which is ridiculous. He's got a red belt. He's all in blue leather, the typical blue for dark. Yeah, the blue representation of anything that's brown or black. In the old days, it's people with blue hair and what have you. So I've got that kind of styling to him, and so I kind of like that. I kind of like big and bold. I like when Kirby was producing characters, everything was really colourful and bright, and I think that kind of thing is important to me. That doesn't mean I can't appreciate slicker things. Of course I can, yeah. But the stuff that I like to create, I would say a bit bolder and a bit brasher.
So a little bit more of like a simplified form?
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
With
I like
bold design, so bigger design, kind of like a color blocking situation and things like that. Because that's the thing with comic art too. I don't think many people realize you have to kind of be like a fashion designer as well.
You got to do everything, yeah. You
got to
come
be
up with all kinds
interior
of stuff.
design, exterior design. You got to be a landscape artist. You got to be an animal artist. You got to draw cars. You got to be an architect. You got to be a fashion designer. You got to do everything in comic book art.
Well, I was doing the book at the moment. There's a piece where there's a panel where Cole is looking out onto the courtyard, and it's the courtyard of a castle that's within a city that's presumably sort of vaguely Eastern European towards Middle Eastern-ish, and it has a garden that he's looking down upon. Well, I've got no pictures for that. I've just got to come up with it. Then he's in a room, for instance, there's another scene where he's in a room where they find a secret passageway, and we had to map the room out so that we could follow the people around the room. And that didn't require a lot of 3D or anything like that. It literally just required a 2D sketch of where am I going to put everything, so that I could follow the scene around the room. And so you got to think, well, what am I going to put on the roof? What am I going to put on the walls? I'll put some tapestries on the walls. I've got to go find a decent reference for a stone floor. There's all kinds of stuff that you have to come up with to make the impressionism convincing.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a part of it. It's when it's done right, the reader is just they're immersed, right? But there's so much that goes into it as an artist. I always say this, right? The writer, the most dreaded words that the artist could read in the script. Draw me a big crowd in the city.
That's always a good one.
And so the writer, draw it's a big crowd in the city. Done, right? 5 seconds.
Yeah. 5. That's no problem at
the
all.
The artist is like, you son of a.
Yeah, that is always the thing. It's like with Daleks, honest that they have to pay by the appearance for Daleks. So you don't want to see a Dalek through the whole of a 7 or 8 page strip, and then on one page you've got an army of them.
Yeah.
So you only have to pay once for the appearance. But yeah, it's easy to say. There's as our hero walks over the brow of the hill, he sees a 5,000 strong army full of trolls and large dragons flying across the landscape, shooting fire out, and it's like, yeah, okay, all right, give it a break. I've got to draw this, but at the same time, it's
like, all right, we're gonna get a depth of field here, and you're gonna get a couple of little dots throughout, and a couple of grayed and blued out. Yeah,
I find the most frustrating writing that you can get is, okay, I want a mid to long range shot. Our heroes are looking toward the villain, and we can see on the expression on their faces how upset they are. But the villain is in the background, and it's like, okay, so you want me to turn the face towards us, but you're looking into the background for the villain, and at the same time you want a long range shot, but you want to be able to see the expression on the person's face, and it's like that. That's several panels. That is several panels, okay? And you can see when you get someone who knows how to write comics, whereas someone who's maybe done television or whatever.
Yeah, you get a lot of
when you can tell.
Pan across.
Yeah.
Zoom in. Not just a close-up shot. You get a zoom in. How am I supposed to zoom in? It says this isn't motion pictures here, but they'll reference it like it's cinematography as opposed to and there's a lot of that. Yeah. That's why even on my own scripts now, I make sure to work with artists who have imagination and who know what they're doing. So when I write my own script, I don't put a lot of, like for King Cryptid, and it's a purchasable thing on the King Cryptid campaign right now for $5 to $9. Okay. You can see the script that's actually being given to the artist. And I describe the story scene page by page. I don't give dialogue, I don't give captions, unless it's something that's integral and really important to the scene. So we're focusing on a specific character, their expression, their emotion as they say something, a revelation or some kind of thing that's occurring. The most direction I'll ever give would be like splash page. So this is like the opener, or this is like the big page turn and that kind of a thing. But other than that, it's just describing the scene of the story, and then the artist goes in there, they envision what that scene is like, what's occurring here. So I'm just telling you the story and how it's playing out, and then you visualize what you see, and then you draw that out. And that's how I worked on the first 4 issues of King Cryptid. And all the artists were like, I never had so much creative freedom, this was so great. And they thumbnail it out, and we do the approval process. But the stuff that they give back to me is better than anything I could have told them to do.
Yeah.
Their imagination isn't hindered by all the dialogue and the narration and how to lay things out. They just go for the storytelling, the visual storytelling. And then it's my job afterwards to kind of retroscript that, because I already have the script loosely already based in my head. So it's my job afterwards to make sure I'm not stomping all over the beautiful art that's already doing a great job of telling that story. So I can either lay back or emphasize and juxtapose something else that's occurring with the writing to give more insight into the story and add more depth to the scene. So the captions don't become redundant of just describing what's occurring, or the characters doing a sort of thing, like you said before, like the hero is blah blah blah, and then we see the image of the hero doing exactly what the caption said the hero would be. That's so stupid and redundant, and it takes up too much important space. So you could utilize that for something else. Maybe there's an allusion to something, maybe there's a narration that's occurring, maybe there's a thought that's occurring, or if it's beautifully done and you want the reader to just soak it in, you just sit back and just let them enjoy the art. But that's why with my own scripts, I noticed that a lot when I was more traditionally writing scripts. I wouldn't do the cinematography style writing, but I noticed the artists would oftentimes become so stagnant creatively, and you wouldn't get the dynamic kind of storytelling that's so important. Yeah,
definitely. I've worked with many different styles of script. I've worked on strict scripts, which are a bit of a nightmare to do. You don't feel like you've got any flair to it because you're just producing exactly what you're being told. Very much like a storyboard, I suppose. And then I've also been given scripts which are literally for a 22-page story that is, like one sheet. Just like, this page they're doing this page they're having a big fight, this page is a big double page spread, I want a big thing going on here. And actually the story worked out fine because the writer knew exactly what they were doing and they just let me get on with it, and it created a really good book. It was really good fun. So I know exactly what you're saying there. But all you writers out there, just think twice.
He's got a black belt. You don't want to make him mad. Stato says, I can't jump on because I'm cooking, but I have to say and ask, Russ, you made 2 beautiful, entertaining books and Only Death Can Save Us. I apologize if I missed it, but are we getting a third?
Yes. There you go. Nice and short and sweet, yes. The plot's already been sort of shaken down a bit, and Rick will be getting involved heavily in that at the end of this year, but at the moment I'm focused on the Shadow Kingdom, and once that's done, then book 3 will be in progress.
Wonderful. There you go. And in case Stato did miss it before, which I think he might have, you're working on the Shadowed Kingdom with Randy Zimmerman.
Yeah.
And you're hoping to kind of crowdfund that towards the end of the year, that kind of
towards the end of the year, yeah. So at that, funnily enough, we were just talking about that where some captions might duplicate the imagery. There will be a couple of occasions where that happens in this particular book, but that's because we're being extremely faithful to the Robert E. Howard script, and we want as much of it in as we possibly can. So it's definitely honouring the book. So I do believe that it's been retold multiple times. I think even Marvel did a version of it, but we're being very faithful to the original texts. Nice. So and it'll be a particular. It's not something I've done before. It would be a particular kind of look to it.
Yeah, I like when there's emphasis involved on that, or when there's something like there's a deeper thing that's occurring and you want to give a specificity to what's occurring. So if a character's running, but you want to let the reader know their capabilities with speed, and you're telling them that they're running, 300 miles an hour or something like that, they're racing towards blah, 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 300 miles an hour, so that provides information. But if it's just, and he's running to get to where he's got to go, well, then you can see it. But when there's that added emphasis or that heightened drama, I like that. I don't mind that, when it's like he the let's say, Conan smashes his sword and splits his head right in half, with tremendous force, that kind of a thing as that's happening. I don't really mind that. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do mind when it's it's
Yeah.
just script is a
There's a
capture.
lot of that. There's a lot of that wordy stuff, but it's we've thrown ourselves into it because we just love the material so much. Randy actually has done a cracking job on keeping it pertinent. Like taking out the extra bits because obviously it is a prose story. So he's done a really good job on that. But yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying putting it together.
Very
And thank you
nice.
very much, Stat. It's very
Yeah.
nice. Thank you.
Looks like we got somebody joining us. 1 second here for a quick question or comment. I'm guessing for you, hopefully. We got Mysterious Mystery Man. Are you going to behave today, Mysterious Mystery Man?
Yes, Pete. Yes, I
Okay.
will.
All
I
right.
will.
What's your question or comment for Russ?
Well, first of all, hello, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
All right, Russ. So I'm a creative myself. I don't do comics, I do music, but
Right.
I have a question that I think, I if you give an answer, I can probably apply it to myself. Like what things do you do when you feel like uninspired in a day, but you have to get work done? Like what certain things do you do to help you get the day rolling?
Right. Okay. I suppose it depends on the schedule. So not all schedules are as harsh as others. So that would depend on how fast you need to get yourself going. I think it's important to walk away whenever possible, as in you need to exercise, you need to get yourself up and moving about, and that helps with the mind because it while you're involved in something creative, you're locked into it, and sometimes you can kind of run out of steam, lock yourself in, and you need to kind of just walk away, do something, and come back to it. And it's good for you anyway to do that. So those kind of things help me personally. I mean, I exercise in the middle of the day as well, so exercise is good. That keeps you going. It used to be, and I'm not saying I don't need to earn money because of course I do. But certainly there have been times when literally just I got to do this because I need to get fed. That is quite a thing to get you going. And I think probably the most important thing is to have an environment where your creativity can be let out, and I find that that's my family. That the fact that I have them there, they support my ideas and my concepts, tell me that how much they're proud of me and love me, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, good. Sounds good, man. Yeah, you see, the issue with me is like when I feel uninspired, I just sort of give up, So that's why I was looking for some advice. So thank you for that.
No,
Yeah,
thank
no
you, and
problem.
I hope everything works out for you, and do some great stuff.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Your audio's cracking a little bit, Mysterious Mystery Man, but other than that, we were able to hear you. Appreciate you stopping by today.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Cheers,
Have a
thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
I would also add to that, go take in other people. So to take in the people that inspire you. So if I'm having trouble, I will also flick through books that I love, things that inspire me. So I'll flick through and I'll copy a Captain Britain, or I'll look at a Conan book, or I'll look at the Avengers or whatever it might be, and I'll go, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. And I would imagine it's the same with any creative process, including music. There'll be people that inspire you. So you just go listen to them and just think, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Where am I going next?
Disappear
it
into
can,
your escapism. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can bring things up out of you inside. So
Yeah, it's important. Everything you talked about, if you're not in the right frame of mind, get up, walk away a bit, and do something, exercise. Exercise is great for that too. It gets everything pumping. It gets you in a different state of mind. It shuts off your thought about what you're hung up on.
Yes.
And you can focus on something more physically tasking. And in the process, a lot of the time, at least I find this for me, doing things like that, all of a sudden it unlocks and you solve that problem that you were having, whatever it might have been that's giving you that block. You'll solve that problem through the course of doing that kind of a thing.
Yeah, because it's like trying to remember a name. Interceptor. That was the character that I did for JD. There you go. So just like it's trying to remember, when you try and remember a name or remember a thing,
working in the background.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and you can't think of it, and you're stuck. Just breaking away and letting the process, the algorithm, or whatever it is, restart, and it gives you that ability to continue. From my own personal perspective, doing karate, I did karate 3 times a week, and I'd go training, so I say 3 times a week, and it's a zen. So the thing about a martial art, especially formal, is so. For instance, I'm in class, I'm doing basics, I'm doing kata, fight, whatever it might be. You're focused on just that, nothing else. There are no bills. There are no family bereavements. There are no comics. There are nothing. There is just, have I done that correctly? Is my foot in the right place? Have I put enough effort in tonight? Am I sweating hard enough? And so the rest of the world melts away. If you can find that spot, whether it's martial arts, running, whatever it might be, if you can find those spots, it means that it'll drain all the crap away, and you can restart. It gives you that headspace, which is what you need.
Oh, it's so important. So important. We got a few minutes left, but Wiley has a good little question, I suppose. Says, anybody else get the feeling that almost everybody that backs indies and crowdfunding are creators themselves? Now, I have a 2-part answer for this. I would say yes, but I would say that not just necessarily they're comic creators. I find that the vast majority, if not every single reader I've ever interacted with, even if they don't create comics, they're creative people in their own right with something. And I find that it's because creative people get inspired by and appreciate the works of other creative people.
Definitely.
So, I find that is, it's true, but they're not necessarily always comic book creators. What about you? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the greatest stories I hear is when you're watching, I don't know, a documentary about the Bee Gees or ABBA or somebody like that, and they give you a story like, oh yeah, well, we didn't know where we were going, and then we got this call and we did this thing and it all accidentally happened. Even though these people, these creative giants, whether they're music, art, whatever, they're going to get somewhere eventually because they just keep pushing themselves. But the stories of how they kind of turn up in these places I find incredibly inspiring. And most of the time, those stories you hear are music-related stories.
Yep.
I suppose just because of the way the industry works,
Yeah,
and because
or used to work anyway.
Yeah, I used to work. Yeah, and the comic book industry is like, well, we all know there's no way into the comic book industry. It's like trying to get out of a prison that you never get the same route out.
It's like a not-so-secret society.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think nowadays that route into comics is completely different. Crowdfunding has broken it.
Oh yeah,
and also,
the Lord.
Yeah, thank the Lord. Yeah, and also mainstream comics have broken themselves with all kinds of stupid reasons. It's not just the rubbish they write about now and the bad writers. And again, this isn't everybody. There are still great diamonds in the rough out there, but it's also the predatory practices of 30 years and comic book shops, direct market. Again, I love comic book shops.
There's so many facets that are broken.
Yeah, but it should never have been taken off off the shelves of a 7-Eleven, for instance, because where you're going to find your next audience.
Yeah, because they got seduced by the non-returnability. If we're sending 2 million copies to newsstands and only selling 400,000, imagine if we got paid for all 2 million.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing every publisher thought at that time. Yeah. It's like, no, you're not going to get. You're still probably going to earn the 400,000, but you're going to lose what the 2 million gave you, which was advertising.
Yeah.
And once you pull out of that market, and that market doesn't forget, believe me, I know firsthand, because when we got into there in 2017, the newsstand was like comic books. We don't have anything on record really for comic book selling on newsstand for about 10 years. I don't think we're going to have to put this on the newsstand, you know? So that was the experience.
Yeah.
Because the comic book market largely had betrayed that market so swiftly. But, you know, it is what it is. It can't be undone at this point. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So
no, exactly. You can't. But, you know, that's the nature of it. The industry is the way it is, and there are no two ways in. But those music stories inspire me. I think they're great. Just knowing that, I think the other thing about comics, about suggesting that creatives are the only people that buy comics, I think it's because comics are smart. You can't be an idiot and read a comic, as much as they'd like you to think that, you know, they'd like to, it's just for kids, or it's for people who aren't very. No, there's so much in good comics. Good comics require an imagination, because there's a gutter in between every panel. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And comics are interactive. They're far more interactive than people who don't understand comics give them credit for. They're the best storytelling medium that there is, because it requires not only you to be able to read correctly and to understand and all those kind of things, but also to have an imagination, to move the story along, to find things within it. There's nothing better than a comic, so you need to be smart to appreciate comics. And that's why you've got so many people, creative people, who are, you know, turned on, switched on, as it were. That's why they're here reading good comics.
Absolutely. Well, man, thank you so much for stopping by today, Russ. Seriously, it was a great conversation. I'll have to have you on again, because there's so much more we could talk about.
Yeah.
Everybody in the chat, thank you guys as well. Really great questions
you.
from all of you guys. It was awesome. Thank you. Tonight, I'm going to be on Billy Tucci's channel at 8 o'clock Eastern. Tune in for that. And then also at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be on Michael Bancroft's channel. So I got a busy...
Wish him my best. I mentioned, DM'd him the other day. He had a really good result, didn't he, on his crowdfunding his book. And what a top bloke he is. As are yourself. Thank you very much, Peter, for having me on.
Oh, so no problem at all.
Very much. Thank you.
Just stay for a couple minutes after the show. I want to talk to you.
Yeah,
but everybody, have a wonderful day. I'm going to be back here again on Saturday night with Kelsey Shannon at 9 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow, I'll be on the Alterna channel for a Fan Friday at 1 o'clock. Just giving some updates on Alterna Comics stuff. And then also Sunday, speaking of Bancroft, he's on my channel on Sunday night at 9 o'clock. So hopefully see you guys then and there. Everybody have a wonderful day, and hopefully I see some of you guys tonight. Everybody, thank you. And Russ, thank you as well. Everyone,
thank you.
See you soon.